All right, welcome in. Cube Show Podcast, a college football podcast, comes to you each and every Sunday, and we are loaded up today. A lot to get to. We've got camp news throughout fall camp. Obviously, we've got a little something different for you today now, a portion of the Podcast Heat Network. So thanks to Conrad Thompson, Dave Greens, and the guys for getting us hooked up, and excited to be a part of what they're doing and hope that they can help us continue to grow. Don't forget, YouTube, at Cube Show 61. Please subscribe. Approaching 5,000. Would love it if we could get there before the season begins. Be pretty cool. Also, Instagram, Twitter, at Cube Show. Please go follow along there. Go check it out. Conversations with Cole, Conrad Thompson edition is up now if you want to go back and check that out. He did drop something on us that I wasn't aware of. Somebody who Nick Saban asked to come and speak to the Alabama football team. Hadn't done it yet, but we'll see if that ends up happening. But a great conversation. We intertwine wrestling and college football. So if you're a fan of both, it's a really fun convo. Conrad's amazing. He knows a lot of good things. And it's not just wrestling, but like from a business perspective, kind of talking about the future of college football, I thought was a great conversation as well. So also with our camp news today, this will be the last show that we do that has no football to review. As you know, week 0 is upon us. We're in game week. Vanderbilt has Hawaii this week. I like Vandy to win that game. I think they control the trenches. I know that Timmy Chang has now got his thing set there at Hawaii. I just don't know if they have the skill to be able to go out and take advantage of Vanderbilt for 4 quarters, especially in Nashville. But I do know that the Vanderbilt secondary has a few concerns, and that will be one reason that maybe you didn't like Vandy in this game. But I think quarterback, I think receiver, I think the young running back's going to be able to make some and create some explosive plays, get things done. The defensive front 7 has been solid through practice, so I like Vandy in that one. And we'll review it next week, and then obviously we'll have a little bit of opponent preview next week for some of the teams that SEC squads are going to be facing, finish up some of our camp review, a little bit of a season review. And then finally today, I'm going to give you we're going to go a little more national today, give you my conference champions, conference championship games, and then we're going to roll into just kind of what we think happens for the college football playoff today and kind of get that thing going, see what it looks like, see what it is. So it's going to be a lot of fun today. And as you know, each and every week brought to you by Wickles Pickles, wickedly delicious. Find them in your grocery store, snacks, wickles.com. If you want them to drop ship them, they can do that. They've got the relish, they've got the okra. The pickles are incredible. And they have wonderful recipes up there at Wickles Pickles on Instagram. Their Instagram has some great recipes and great different ways that you can use them and get that done. So we always appreciate Wickles Pickles being the title sponsor of the show. Let's get right into it. It's been too long already. Fall camp, scrimmages, some scrimmages over the weekend, a couple of teams done. Florida's done, Tennessee's done, no more scrimmages. Well, they were done before Saturday. Saturday, obviously a big day for a lot of other scrimmages. We'll discuss a couple of those. Georgia names Carson Beck starting quarterback. It's really not a big surprise. I know not for us, not for you guys that have listened to this show. I think he brings the total package of the guys that were competing for this job. His ability to stand strong in the pocket, push the ball down the field with the weapons that Georgia's going to have. And I would imagine operating and understanding the offense also has to be critical because of some of those weapons that you're going to have. But Carson Beck will be the guy heading into the season. Cornerback Smoke Bowie enters the portal. I am not really concerned about Georgia's secondary, so sayonara. Don't know. It'll be his third school wherever he ends up next. Some injuries, though, for Georgia. Ernest Green at tackle a little bit beat up. Xavier Truss maybe a little bit dinged. We know for a while now Smell Munden, Kendall Milton, among some others, have been a little bit nicked up. The injury situation at running back, I think, is intriguing heading into the season, but it's not like it's going to be anything right off the bat that's going to be problematic. And with some of those other weapons we talked about, especially now with what you're going to have in the slot and Dominic Lovett, how you can move Brock Bowers around, I think Coach Bobo is going to be fine being able to manage that thing. The offensive line has been good and been consistent throughout fall camp. The defense, maybe not the guys that will be off the board early, as many of those individual players next year on that defense right now. Some of the younger pups stepping up, making some plays. And the secondary apparently has been lights out throughout fall camp. There are just not a lot of concerns with Georgia with what's happened through camp or really heading into the season. We'll give you my top 10 a little bit later in the show, and you can probably imagine where Georgia's going to be, where they should be for everybody, in my opinion. Alabama scrimmages yesterday. Quarterbacks still a little bit inconsistent. Apparently Tyler Buckner was better yesterday. Jalen Milroe made some plays, but also had some plays that kind of make you say, what? Ty Simpson, a very safe day yesterday. Some of that may have been, where some of these individuals were running. Certain guys against the ones, certain guys only against the twos. Things change a little bit when that happens. Also, you can enter situations where you have a different type of a scrimmage where the defense allowed to do more than the offense, maybe as far as checks or slants and stuns, different things like that. And you're going to be – coaches want to see one side at a disadvantage at different points in time. That does take place. It's not just a free-for-all every time teams go out there and scrimmage. So always keep in mind when you hear about scrimmages, control. Things are very controlled. The coaches know what they want to see and what they want to get. So it's not go line the ball up at the 50 and say, all right, guys, let's see what you got. That ain't how it works. But you do learn a lot in certain situations and when certain guys are around certain other guys. It's just the way that it plays out. So quarterback, I still think Milroe probably gets the first snap. I still feel pretty good about Ty Simpson taking that thing over at some point in time. I don't know if they name a regular starter going into week 2. I would think you would, playing against Texas, another team who I've heard the camp has been phenomenal. We'll talk about Texas a little bit later because we got Big 12 and we got some national stuff. Our top 10, we'll talk about the Longhorns. But you would want to have your guy by then. Dylan Lonergan is wowing people. His talent, his ability has sort of, I don't want to say put him in the race, but he's gotten some mention, and I think he's gotten some real interest and intrigue now, and somebody who maybe later in the year, if things aren't going well, could be an option. I'm interested, though, once this thing is divided down and the reps are cut for everybody, does Jalen Milroe take a step? Does Ty Simpson take a step? Because now it's going to go past a heavy rotation of usually 3, sometimes 4, moving back and forth to different situations with different groups, 1s, 2s, 3s, whatever, to being much more, you're the guy today, you're number 2 today, or flipping that up and going the other guy 1 and 2. So I'll be interested to see over the next week and a half sort of how that plays out. Justice Hayes was out at running back, but running back's been pretty loaded for Alabama. I don't think that's going to be an issue. There are certain guys back there that I think can carry the load. I think they have enough to be able to go around, and it can be a couple of different guys in that Alabama backfield. Amari Nyblack at tight end, apparently showing his playmaking ability, somebody who I saw last year early and kind of wondered why he didn't get on the field. It's been a crowded position in the past. It's a little bit crowded now with C.J. Dupree coming in from Maryland, but Nyblack is your stretch the field, speed, mismatch guy, and I think he's going to find a way to help out, and he'll be a big part of that offense. More drops from the wide receivers, some inconsistency there. It's just something that's haunting that team right now. And I know Law and Prentice both had big plays in the scrimmage, but just as a group, I think it's all been inconsistent. Defensively, Caleb Downs, freshman safety, has been wowing people. Earl Little's been making plays, even though not all with the ones. Malachi Moore making plays. The secondary is going to be fine with the way they're able to move people around and different guys who can line up and do different things. I don't think that's going to be much of an issue for this Alabama defense. Deontay Lawson at linebacker apparently has been what a lot of folks thought he could be. He's taken a big leap this fall camp. This defense forcing turnovers, stripping the ball, picking the ball off. They seem to be hungry in a little bit of a different way than they have been in the past. The defensive line, Tim Smith, more consistent, coming on. Bigby's had a nice camp. So it might not be just Jaheim Otis up front that's able to help this Alabama defense be problematic. Back on the offense, Caden Proctor most of the day at left tackle. More Dalcourt at guard instead of Terrence Ferguson, who did spend some time with the ones. I'm sure now you're trying to also look at depth. You're mixing and matching to try to find out if a guy went out, who would be next and how you'd handle those situations. Hugh Freeze actually told us on McElroy and Cubelic, Jocks 94.5, JocksFM.com, 7 to 10 a.m. weekday mornings earlier this week, that was kind of one of the things that he was looking at doing and why some of the offensive linemen were moving around. So all in all, I don't think it was a bad day for Alabama. If you're looking for more questions with the quarterback situation, I just don't think you're going to get them until after game 1. But we will find out who's getting more reps this week. And the wide receivers have just got to be more consistent. And you want to build a little bit more depth along that front seven. Trez Marshall, the Georgia transfer, getting a lot of work done at linebacker as well. Don't forget, we're brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans. Also, speaking of a good fit at a good time, Blue Delta Jeans, the best denim you'll ever purchase, custom fit just for you, bluedeltajeans.com. It's the best denim you'll ever own. I have multiple pairs. I can dress them up for a night on the town. If it's a little more of a dressy occasion, put a sport coat on with them if I need to, and they're comfortable. They're not super hot. They're flexible. So for big, husky guys like us, Blue Delta jeans are perfect for you. Go check them out, bluedeltajeans.com. Christmas not that far away. Gift certificate would be perfect. If you're heading to Oxford, you can go right in the shop and let them measure you there, or they'll come to you. Go check out Nick and the guys at bluedeltajeans.com. They are amazing. All right, LSU gets Denver Harris back at camp. Running back hasn't necessarily sorted itself out just yet. I think they're still tinkering with the offensive line, but the defensive line has looked really good. I think this has been a little bit of a surprising camp in some different ways for LSU, but not a lot of drama in this LSU camp. I think it has been one that they have a pretty good idea who they are. There's a couple of situations they want to test, a lot of those in the secondary. The transfers in the secondary apparently having a really nice fall camp. So could it be a plug-and-go scenario there where that position takes a pretty big leap? I think the usage of Harold Perkins has been something that's still yet to be determined exactly how they want that to be. Is it closer to the line of scrimmage? Is it off the ball? Matt House going to have to figure out probably on a week-to-week basis where he's best suited to impact the opposite offense the most and be able to cause the most problems. So I think Auburn is in a similar situation with Alabama after Peyton Thorne at quarterback, because you have a guy in Holden Gerder that's really come on, made a lot of noise, but I don't know if he has a real chance to be the starter or didn't have a real chance. Peyton Thorne now named the Auburn starter by Hugh Freeze this week. He gets his veteran. And here, the thing that there have been a lot of folks out there saying that Robbie Ashford needs to go. He's too athletic. He has to play. Robbie Ashford's going to play if he handles the situation correctly, which Hugh Freeze emphasized in his press conference after the scrimmage last when he announced that Peyton Thorne was going to be the guy. Said if he handles this the right way, and I actually asked him about it when we had him on, Mac and Cube. I kind of doubled down on that, like how has he handled it so far? He said he's handled it great. Had his best practice yesterday. Well, now apparently he's had his best 3 practices. The problem with you going out and saying that he's the best quarterback in America because he's had his best 3 practices is you don't know how shitty his first 10 practices were. So you have no idea how good, how bad, how up, how down, how inconsistent everything else has been to equate to his best 3 practices. So you can't just put giant labels on things like that. Robbie Ashford will play if he accepts it and he handles it well. He can help Auburn win games. I have no doubt in my mind. But you still got to be a good teammate, and you still got to be a good locker room guy, and you still have to be somebody who can affect your team in a positive way, even when you're not on the field with the football in your hand. But a lot going on in Auburn camp. There's a lot of things that a lot of people are excited about. Whatever competitive desire, I guess you would say, like the desire to go out and do the things the coaches are asking you to do, be coachable, buy in. We hear all these slogans. I don't know what's the best one, but whatever that is, I think Auburn has a lot of it right now. Doesn't mean they're going to win 10 games, but there's some excitement about kind of the leadership and the want to and the attitude. And if you're wondering where Auburn is, sort of this football team as it pertains to the culture and what Hugh Freeze has done, I've heard that guys like Jaleel Irvin are having an amazing camp. And that doesn't mean he's pushing for a starting job, but what's Jaleel Irvin been around for 6 years? Like, that's not a guy that I intended to hear somebody say, hey, man, he's having a really good camp. Well, apparently he just likes being around there. Tight end Micah Riley is somebody who now all of a sudden people are saying that's going to be a kid that helps him one day. Probably not this year, but you're getting young, old, new, veteran development in different ways that you haven't had in a long time. That tells me that the culture is in a pretty good spot. When you get want to from players that you maybe haven't had in the past or development that hasn't happened in the past, that means a lot of things are going right with that staff, in my opinion, and how they're handling things inside the building. So kudos to Freeze and his staff. The running backs apparently look great. They're super deep there. Jarquez Hunter most likely is going to miss some time early, but you'll have Brian Battie, who's going to be able to help you out of the backfield. Apparently runs heavier than he looks. Damari Alston, I think I've said it, is your perimeter sort of speed guy who I think can provide some explosive plays. But watch out for Sean Jackson, because now apparently Sean Jackson wants some carries. Now, he's a bruiser, He doesn't have the breakaway speed, but I think some Auburn fans would love to see him in a short yardage situation where he's kind of your grinder back or 4-minute offense and just pound it with him. People would love to see that, and he's making a push to get some real time. Along that offensive line, also, like another thing, give Jake Thornton, Kendall Simmons credit. Apparently now Xavion Miller's coming on and making a push at right tackle. And if right guard is a bit of a problem and Gunnar Britton's a better fit there, if you need to slide him down, you could and play Miller at right tackle. You still need a swing tackle. And I think one advantage Auburn has is Gunnar Britton can play all 5. So he could legitimately end up being a backup to 4 or 5 positions. And if he had to go somewhere else, that's why you need Xavion Miller to show up at right tackle. If he's your backup center, backup left guard, you got to have the next guy up to be able to move him to all those different spots. So that's what that coaching staff kind of working on right now. But Jeremiah Wright, a guy who you guys know I love him, and plays the game the way it's supposed to be played, having a little trouble dialing that down, but you'd rather have to coach that out of a kid than trying to kick him in the rear end every day and try to get him going and start his engine or light his fire. Apparently he's got that, but the technique and fundamentals don't always come with it, a little bit heavy. But he's a guy I'm excited to watch play this year because I love the way he plays the game. Shane Hooks, Auburn tweets out the one-handed catch. My understanding is he's done a lot of that this fall camp, and he is that dude. You just wondered from Jackson State to the SEC, how would it transition? Doesn't sound like it's going to be much of a problem. Also, Jay Fair has lived up to the hype and the expectations. He'll live in the slot, so you'll be able to do a lot with him, with how you move him, how quickly you can get him the football, and he can create those explosive plays after that. Rivaldo Fairweather at tight end's been great. Luke Deal at tight end's been great. I think they're going to be fine at the tight end position as well. There's a lot of things that are pointing to this team being able to exceed expectations. Here's the thing. Is that 7 wins? Is it 8 wins? Is it 10 wins? I don't think they can get to 10. But I think 8 would be a great year against that schedule. That's my opinion, based on where things are and where the rest of the league is. Off the edge, McLeod from App State has been everything everybody thought he would. Now, he's going to have to get creative on first and second down against the run, and that's where Elijah McAllister will help you a little bit more. But also Steven Singh's the Liberty Edge defender having a nice fall camp. So seeing these other guys emerge after being around this coaching staff for a month or 2 or 3, it's pretty impressive when you think about it. Also, one thing that's maybe not going according to plan is overall the interior of the defensive line. Justin Rogers, Jason Jones. Rogers is kind of battling a little bit of an injury, trying to get back into the swing of things. Jason Jones has been up and down. He needs to be a consistent player for this defense. They need that body type to be in there and be able to go. Nasil Kite from Maryland is not that body type. He can help you do some things. Marcus Banks is not that body type. Now, the Johnson kid from Purdue is, and apparently his motor's been coming around a little bit more. But having said all of that, I can't recall the last time that Auburn had that many SEC body types at defensive tackle that they were going to be able to roll, and there wasn't going to be a real liability of who came in. So hopefully, collectively, it ends up becoming a strength for that group. But right now, trying to get certain guys going on a regular basis. Down in Gainesville, Florida Gators, I hear great things about Graham Mertz. And, one of the things about podcasts like this or talking to people about things, we're going to talk about Texas in a minute. That's a great example. I'm going to tell you that Texas is going to be a preseason top 10 team for me, and I'm going to tell you they're going to be in their conference championship games. And there's going to be certain people that lose their mind and say, Texas win a national title, best team ever. Texas can be good, and it's not me walking off of a cliff saying the same things that I've said every year about them for 10 years, and they can't live up to it. They're going to be different this year. I think Graham Mertz can be different this year. I don't think he's Danny Werfel. Hell, I don't think he's Rex Grossman. But he's apparently throwing the ball well. He's seeing things well. He's accurate. He understands the offense well. So there are some lights that have come on for Graham Mertz, and the running backs look good. Montrell Johnson, ATN, both having a nice camp. Offensive line's been pretty good. So, I think that if you get some of those young receivers like an Andy Jean that really pops, watch out. And we still don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like for Utah in the opener. I mean, that thing sounds like it's all over the place, and I don't know. We'll see how that thing plays out. The defensive line, big, physical, heavy-handed. I think that they will be more stout against the run this year than people are giving Florida credit for. That's just something that I anticipate and I expect based on some of the personnel. So I'm not counting Florida out just yet. I'm gonna wait on the Florida funeral until I get a couple of games in. A lot of other folks calling for that right now. I actually had one, speaking of this weekend, for a high school friend. I called Blakely's Bouquets, blakeleysbouquets.com. You can go there, see what they have to offer you. If it's a wedding, if it's a funeral, if it's a birthday, Mother's Day, whatever it is, a wedding, they can handle events. Jefferson County, Shelby County, right here in Birmingham, they can do same-day delivery. Call 205-579-4900. If you want to troll your rival after you beat them, send them some flowers as a joke. Great thing to do. They also offer local and regional event coverage as a florist. And I'm just going to tell you, there are wonderful people running this place. They do an excellent job. They aim to please. I had multiple people comment about what they put together for a good friend of mine's funeral over the weekend. Rest in peace, John Whidden, just an Auburn legend, by the way, a guy who was just, he was the literal Paul Bunyan of Homewood when I was growing up, and I hated losing him. I hate it for his family. I know that's a big sidebar there that a lot of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but he's a guy that helped me a lot early in my life, and just hate to see him go. But nonetheless, blakeleysbouquets.com, 205-579-4900. Go check them out today. They are fantastic. All right, after Florida, we got Kentucky. Came out of the scrimmage healthy this weekend. Deion Walker had a big day. That defensive line is going to need him. They like where that depth is going with the defensive line. Things on that side of the ball look pretty good. You saw Trevin Wallace on Bruce Feldman's freak list. We've been trying to tell you about him for a while now, that he's set have a massive year off the ball as a Kentucky linebacker. There are still some small concerns with the offensive line. There are no concerns at quarterback. There are little concerns at tight end. There are no concerns at receiver. Running back depth has gotten better through fall camp. But that right side with Cortland Ford, Jeremy Flax, just now it looked like it was going to be Ford, and now might be a little back and forth. Maybe some things at center. It's got to get cleaned up before the season starts. The good news for the Wildcats is you sleepwalk into this season, and that is going to afford you the luxury to be able to figure out a few of these things over the first course of the year and how it's going. I was just going to get it up quickly and remind folks, if you're wondering, Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron at Vandy. Before you play Florida, then you get Georgia on the road. So you got some time to be able to figure that thing out if you are the Kentucky Wildcats, and they're going to need to still figure a few things out along the offensive line. That doesn't mean it's going to be what it was last year. It's just they want to get it back to where it has been, 4 or 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and that's going to take a lot more than what they've already seen through camp. All right, so over in Missouri, safety Isaac Thompson out for the year. Quarterback still kind of, there's a lot about this Missouri team that I think people are excited about. I think seeing your best player come down in the slot where they're going to move him more and try to distribute the football quickly. But the defensive line is going to be fine. They just got to get quarterback figured out, man. And they don't have a ton of time early in the season. I'll just tell you that. It's going to be some tough sledding for Mizzou, and obviously things are starting to slow down for them because they open up on that Thursday night of week 1. Texas A&M, wide receiver Noah Thomas, big day. Jade Walker at wide receiver. Billy Lucci was on Mac and Q with us this week saying that's a name you need to watch. So if Lucci says it, I trust it. Defense got the best of the scrimmage the first time around. Offense, best of the scrimmage second time around. Just remember, as we stated, those things can be situational, and they can all be set up to want it to go a certain way, but it's good if they set it up to go certain ways, and then it does. Defense better, offense better. D-line setting the tone in camp for A&M from what I've been told. And the name that we've mentioned a few times, Reuben Owens, freshman running back, like one of those things that we've said, Le'Veon Moss, fine, it's good, but could they be dynamic at tailback? Well, apparently Reuben Owens was dynamic in the scrimmage, catching the ball and running the ball. So that could be a spot where A&M really kind of shows up and looks like, this team's going to be a real problem. And if Noah Thomas and Jade Walker get going at receiver, you already got Anais Smith, you got Moose, you got Evan Stewart. I mean, this offense has a chance to be lethal this year. And I've already seen some folks that have been upset with me talking about, Greg and I talked on our show again. I hate to keep referencing Mac and Q, but it's probably a reason you should listen to the thing. 7 to 10 a.m. weekday mornings. But we were talking about that Auburn A&M matchup. That was our matchup of the day one day. And we kind of leaned A&M win it. And I saw some folks that were mad about that. Well, look how they both looked late in the year last year. And it didn't look like A&M won anything. A&M didn't want to play football at the end of last year. And there are a lot of reasons that was the case. I've been on teams that were sub 500, didn't have a lot to play for. So sometimes it goes that way. But Texas A&M having a great camp, and looks like things are heading in the right direction. We'll find out probably in Miami, Coral Gables, week 2. Arkansas, tight end room looks like a strength right now. Luke Haas apparently having a nice camp. Varkey's Gums coming along. They're going to find some ways to use him. Running backs have been something for the Razorbacks that have been a strength thus far. And we know Rocket Sanders, right? Like, I don't have to tell you guys that Rocket Sanders is a real deal. You're going to get him. But I've heard that it's not just Rocket Sanders, and that whole room has had a really good fall camp and has done some good things. Specifically with running back Rashad Dubinion, I'm told, has made some nice runs, done some really nice things in the Arkansas camp so far. Listen, wide receivers have been pretty good, not worried about that. But I'm also told this new offense is heavily favoring KJ Jefferson. Accurate, decisive, sees things well. We'll see how it goes, because I think the O-line is going to be okay. We talked about the athletic tackles that are a little bit younger that they have. That tight end room, if it's coming along, will really help those tackles out, as will running back depth. You can play some two-back if you want to. Enos has coached that before. It's not like it's out of the ordinary for him. But Trajan Jeffcoat on that D-line, we've already seen what he can do. He's proven in this league. It's no surprise to me that he's been balling. Lorenzo Johnson and Al Walcott have been pretty good in the secondary, and Jaheim Singletary is going to be a dude. Georgia transfer at corner. If those last 3 names are solid, that puts a massive Band-Aid on a bullet hole that you had on that football team last year. Actually, probably be more like a cannonball hole that you had last year. So, that was a 50 cal wound that you were trying to manage on the back end of that defense a year ago. Could be a major step forward in that department. I've already told you, with Travis's defense, the structure of it, they will be more responsible against things like that this year. So I think Arkansas feels really good about camp so far. The schedule's a bear. There's no other way around it, but a lot of things have been really positive for the Razorbacks through camp thus far. Tennessee did not schedule Saturday, but they finished it up last week. Apparently, Joe Milton was really good. Jalen Wright's still separating himself as the best running back on the team. Omar Norman Lott was really good on that defensive line. The D-line depth is coming along for Tennessee. And, maybe something that acts as a little bit more of a strength on this football team. I think center and right tackle are still big question marks, though. Whether it's, Ollie Lane, J.J. Crawford at center, how long is Mays going to be out? When can he get back in and be at close to full strength? I don't know. But I do know that John Campbell over on the left side, primo, everything you want, has been great through fall camp. He's ready to get in there and go and be a guy. So that part of that Tennessee football team has been repaired and is not an issue, and is not really going to be something that they have to be too concerned about. So I know something that some of you guys are sometimes concerned about is kind of getting things going back in the bedroom. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. So we got to talk about sex. Guys, remember the days when you were always ready to go? Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up and go to BlueChew.com. Blue Chew, a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, but it's in chewable tablets at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night. You can plan ahead, be ready whenever the opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com. Consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Best part is, it's all done online. No visits to the doctor's office. You don't have to have those awkward conversations. You can save that for me doing the reads here on the show. And no waiting in line at the pharmacy, because if you're getting other stuff there, you don't want to deal with that in front of those folks either. Blue Chew's tablets, made in the USA, prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. So you could be missing out on some of the best times of your life. Get back going again with Blue Chew. Men everywhere excited to see the postman, because when your package has arrived, well, it's really arrived. So always say first impression's important. What about lasting impressions? Blue Chew can help you provide that. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use your promo code CUBE, C-U-B-E. That's a big one. You're going to want to remember that one. Check out, just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. Promo code CUBE. Receive your first month free at BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And really want to thank Blue Chew now for being a sponsor of the show. All right, so that's our SEC camp news kind of to the side. What's happening there? As we know, this is the last week that we will not have a game to review, and then we'll preview some of the SEC opponents next week as well, because I think there are going to be a couple of tricky things about certain opponents that you may not know, and I'm going to be into the film on some of the teams and some of the guys coming into those teams from last year, and we're going to give those to you next week. But I wanted to give you just a little bit more of a national picture of where I think things are right now. And I guess we'll say some predictions about what I see coming up here in this college football season. So I'm going to go through conferences and let you know who I think is going to compete in those conference championship games. And then who I think, maybe why some teams are not going to be there in my playoff predictions as well. In the Big 12, I think it's going to be Texas and Kansas State. Guys, I love Texas this year. I think Sark has put together a hell of a staff. Kyle Flood coaching that defense, that offensive line, former head coach. You've got Bo Davis, who's considered to be one of the best defensive line coaches in college football. And that's where it's needed to improve vastly, and it's getting there. I'm not going to say it's SEC ready just yet, but it's pretty damn close. But this team can freaking go. They got juice at tight end. They got juice at wide receiver. They got different type wide receivers. I mean, they got Jordan Whittington, a big physical slot. You got Xavier Worthy, who can line up anywhere and run any route and can run past you. They don't have the running back prowess that they had a year ago, but I think the offensive line is going to be even better with all 5 starters back, and Kelvin Banks, probably a first-round draft pick one day, that they're going to be just fine. And don't forget, guys, Sark can absolutely deal. Like, he can dial it up. Quinn Ewers has done all the things, apparently, that we thought he needed to do to become a big-time college quarterback in the offseason. The understanding of being a leader, being a quarterback. It's one of the things I've shared on this show before that Sark told us in the bowl game is being the quarterback at Texas is different, man. There's a lot more that comes with it than knowing what protection to get in and where to throw the football. And he apparently has really taken on to that and understands a lot more of it. The defensive line going to be physical. Jalen Ford, do-it-all linebacker, and one of the guys that I hear a lot of buzz about in fall camp is Arkansas transfer Jalen Catalon. We don't want to go too crazy with it because he's had a really hard time staying healthy. But if he's 85% of what we saw when he was 100% at Arkansas, he's going to help, and he's going to make plays, and he's going to make Texas more difficult to deal with. I think Texas plays Kansas State. I love what Kansas State is now going to be able to do down the field in the passing game with maybe some of the more run-heavy quarterbacks in the past that they were not able to do. You do lose, a very productive back, but that offensive line is still going to pound you. The defensive line is still going to be heavy-handed, and I think Chris Kleiman is a hell of a coach. I just think Texas is going to be a little bit faster, a little bit more athletic, and I think Texas wins the Big 12. Here's the other part about the Big 12 quickly. Some folks might say when we get down to the playoff picture in a minute that, well, Big 12 team doesn't really matter. Like, what if Texas loses to Bama? Are they going to have enough on their schedule and still have a chance to get in? I think yes. Part of that is, and we don't know if this is going to take place, they're going to need success here, the non-conference games the Big 12 has early. Okay, and I'm not saying they win all of these or most of these or whatever, but Illinois, Iowa, Bama, Arkansas, Missouri, Oregon, Penn State, Pitt. You let a couple of those teams in that conference get a couple of those wins, the perception is going to shift real quick as to what the Big 12 is. I think it's a better conference than most people believe right now anyway, but there's still a lot of people that don't want to put it up to where a team who maybe drops a game or so shouldn't deserve to get into the playoff. Now, TCU obviously got in last year after losing the conference championship game, but Texas road schedule, it's not easy. Alabama, Baylor, Houston, TCU, Iowa State. The one thing that I really don't like that will be tough is later in the season, BYU, Kansas State, and then you're at TCU. There are people that think TCU may be better at quarterback this year. I hadn't seen it, so I don't know. But they got some transfers in, Sonny Dykes did, that if they can get the most out of them, watch out. TCU might not be going anywhere. I think TCU going to be pretty good. I obviously think Texas is going to be pretty good. I think Kansas State's going to be pretty good. I think Baylor's a little iffy. I'm not 100% sure on exactly what we're going to get out of Baylor right now, but I think they got a chance to be pretty good. I think Texas Tech's going to be really good. Now, Texas Tech at West Virginia, at BYU, at Texas. Like, they're going all over the place, and they're playing tough teams on the road and tough places to play. All three of those places are absolutely brutal to go win a game. I think Texas Tech's in it, but I think Texas, K-State, and I think Texas wins the Big 12. In the Pac-12, I like Washington. I think they play Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game, and I think Washington wins the Pac-12. Now, the conference is loaded. I mean, how can you not say that the Pac-12 is not loaded? Mainly from a quarterback perspective. Defense, physicality, I get it. But there are some teams that are kind of showing up to that party. Oregon State's a team that nobody wants any part of. Like, nobody wants to mess with what they do. Utah, obviously, is as good at the line of scrimmage as most other teams in college football on both sides of the ball. And apparently Kyle Whittingham says this is the best team he's had as far as O-line, D-line combination. UCLA, with how Chip mixes it up, especially, and what they do on that offensive line, that ain't fun. And Washington will grind you down on both sides of the ball. So it's getting better, unfortunately, as it's going away. But I do think that part can help the perception of the league this year. Listen, quarterback's loaded. And there's some big ifs. Like, what if Jaden Delora gets just a little bit of help and a little more consistency? What if Cam Ward gets a little more defense? What if DJ Uiagalelei kind of figures it out at Oregon State? Like, they can go run the ball 50 times a game and win games. Now you add a quarterback with elite talent that can – we've seen him do it before. Like, it's a big what if, but just what if? Colorado's going to be more capable. I don't think they're going to win 6 or 7 games, but they're going to be more capable. Here's the thing with all these quarterbacks, and there's pretty much one at every school. You're going to get upsets. By the way, I didn't even mention the reigning Heisman Trophy winner in USC. You're going to get upsets. And I think if UCLA had any of those quarterbacks that we've mentioned, including Bo Nix and maybe a few others, they might be in this conference championship game for me. I love what Chip's doing. I love a lot of that roster. I'm a little worried about quarterback. I don't know exactly how it's going to go. And now it looks like Arizona State's going to have to play a freshman quarterback. So that one could work against them. Cal, probably not. But there are 5 teams that could end up in this conference championship game easily. I love the way Washington's built at the line of scrimmage. There's a reason Nick Saban went to try and hire Ryan Grubb. I saw how personal that team took it, that Michael Penix Jr. was not in New York. They're going to have a veteran-laced team that can get to the quarterback up front, a group of receivers that can freaking go. I mean, flat out go multiple spots. And a quarterback that knows how to get to him. Now, he gets a little cold every now and then, so the consistency can still improve for Penix. But adding Dylan Johnson to the mix, now a downhill north-south runner that's super physical, and they've hit on their portal kids. They've had a couple sleeper portal kids that have come in and gave them some real good reps. I think they got a great head coach. I think they got 2 good coordinators, and I think Washington wins the Pac-12. And I think they do it against Oregon. I think Dan Lanning is building a monster out there. He had a little bit of help before him. Some of the guys kind of showed how it could be done, but he's just not taking it to the next level. I do think new coordinator, a little bit worried about a couple holes on defense. I don't know about all the offensive line, but they're going to be scary. And I just question USC's defense, and I question how much is going to be on Caleb Williams coming back as far as what the expectation is going to be and the guys around him. I don't collectively like USC as a team just yet. The offense is super exciting. I get it. I understand it. And then with Utah, I just don't know about this Cam Rising situation right now. And whether it's week 4, whether it's week 1, week 2, I just don't know. If he was healthy, full go, I'd probably have different teams and maybe a different conference champion. But I don't know right now. Utah's at Baylor, Oregon State, USC, Washington, and Arizona. Now they get Florida, they get Oregon at home. It's tough, man. It's tough. I like UCLA's schedule a lot, but like I said, quarterback, don't really know. USC, by the way, at Notre Dame, and then they go Utah, at Cal, and Washington. So you have 3 teams in there that can just beat you down and will, mixed in with a road trip to Cal, which is just a weird thing in all in of itself. So I just don't love the schedule for USC. with how they're built and what they're going to see and what some of those other teams are going to do to them, especially consecutively getting some of those teams, I'm not a huge fan of it. So I've got Washington winning the Pac-12. In the Big Ten, I love Michigan. There's actually a lot of teams I like in the Big Ten this year. I think Maryland can be scary. Ohio State is going to be scary. I think Penn State is going to be a really good football team. It's unfortunate that Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan are in the same division. I think Iowa could be better than people think. I'm really interested to see Nebraska. I'm not as high on Nebraska as like McElroy is. I want to see Jeff Sims kind of prove it a little bit. And I don't think the depth around that's why you saw in the portal, they basically went athlete and said, let's just go get the best athlete at multiple positions and then see if we can sort of figure it out, which is what they needed to do because they needed more speed. They needed more athleticism. Purdue, I have no idea what to expect. I'm just going to be honest with you. I think it's one of the biggest question marks in college football. I think Michigan State's a little bit of a question mark this year. And I think Wisconsin is, maybe. I've seen that offense at Ole Miss, North Carolina. I know how Phil Longo runs it. He's become much more responsible running it. Apparently the receivers have looked good in camp, but holy hell, that's new, man. It's like we talk about Mississippi State. That's really different. Culturally, it's really different. Personnel-wise, it's really different. You still got all those tight ends and fullbacks there. What are you going to do with them? I think the defense will be solid, and I think they got a great head coach, but still a first-year head coach. So I'm going to go with Illinois winning the West, and I'm going to go with Michigan winning the East. And I think when you look at Penn State going at Illinois, at Ohio State, at Michigan State, that's a tough draw. Ohio State at Notre Dame, at Wisconsin on October 28th, and, of course, they're at Michigan, which that could be really the only one that matters as far as getting to this game. I think it's Michigan and Illinois in the Big Ten title game, and I think Michigan wins it again. I love the O-line. I love the transfers they brought in on the O-line. I love their running back duo. I think they have a quarterback that's ready to take even another step. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be where all those Pac-12 quarterbacks are, but I do think McCarthy can be a little bit more and a little bit better than he was a season ago. And now with all this Harbaugh stuff happening, this could be the rallying cry of us against the world, a little extra motivation. They're a little more tweaked up on the D-line this year. I think they're going to be pretty active there and be able to be problematic. But they just bring a different style with a little bit more athleticism and being a little bit better coach. I'll say technically and fundamentally, they have been the best offensive line the last few years. You can make the debate of just overall as far as brute force and just beating people up. But technically and fundamentally, they're a sound football team, period, as you're going to see almost anywhere. And that's why I think Michigan gets it done again. At Nebraska, at Minnesota, at Michigan State, at Penn State, at Maryland. That's, you have some weird road games in there, but with the way they're built, they should be able to handle it. So I like getting Ohio State at home. I love the rallying cry behind the head coach, us against the world, the leadership that's going to be back. There are multiple guys coming back on this football team because they wanted to play on this team for these coaches. So I'll take Michigan winning the Big Ten over Illinois. In the ACC, man, there's some teams that I just don't know about. Louisville, excuse me. So many people think that they're just going to be fantastic. I don't know. Miami was supposed to be great last year. The O-line apparently looks better, but it's going to have to be a lot better to really compete. North Carolina, are they going to stop anybody? I don't know. And listen, you lost your top two receivers and had another one you were banking on that didn't get his waiver. I don't know. Wake Forest. You lose Sam Hartman, but there's some confidence with what's coming in next. And that receiving core has been vastly underrated the last few years. They're going to get a couple they probably shouldn't. But I think Duke can be scary again. I love Elko, and I think he does an amazing job. And they're going to be a solid football team. I'm interested to see NC State's offense because now that thing's going to be ramped up with a coordinator and a quarterback that have been together before and put up massive numbers. But it almost goes against their DNA a little bit. They're kind of a hard hat, rugged, punch you in the face football team. And I know when Drink was there and other guys have been there, they spread it out a little bit more. It's fine, but they win in the trenches, and they win usually because they're meaner and nastier than you are. That's the way I view NC State. So I'm interested to see how that transition sort of works out. I love Drake May, but I just don't know if collectively that team can go win the league. It comes down to Florida State and Clemson for me. And I think right now, personally, it's close. I think Florida State's a better football team. I like them a little bit more at quarterback. I like their offensive line better. I like I like the weapons on the perimeter better at Florida State. And I love the way Norvell dials it up, man. I think he's a fantastic play caller. I think he's an elite play caller. And, they're going to get tested. They are right out of the gate against LSU. At BC, then at Clemson. I don't like that about the Florida State schedule. At Pitt, November the 4th is a little scary for obvious reasons. But, Clemson's at Syracuse. We've seen what that thing's gone. At Miami, at NC State, and then Notre Dame. Don't love that stretch. North Carolina and then at South Carolina to close. So there's some things that work against Clemson as far as the schedule is concerned. I'll take Florida State Clemson in the ACC title game in a rematch, and I think Florida State wins it again. I think they can have the loss to LSU and still be in the ACC title game. And then I don't know about getting into the playoff because I think those two teams could split that. They could drop the game to LSU. It's close, man. It's close. So when we come to my preseason top 10, how exactly is that thing going to look? How do you look? Like, are you good with your appearance? And maybe sometimes not just like what other people can see, but I want to tell you about something that can help your personal appearance. And something that's helped me as well. As draft season approaches, fantasy football fans, don't neglect the most important draft pick of all. That's your game balls. We all know how injuries can ruin a season, so let Manscaped take care of that, Reggie Bush of yours with their skin-safe technology. This should guarantee you have a smooth ride into the playoffs. The leader in below-the-waist grooming have created a championship lineup with their Performance Package 4.0. It's time for you to do the same. Join the 9 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by going to manscaped.com. You can get 20% off and free shipping with the code CUBE, C-U-B-E. So like I said, remember that one. It's going to be a good one. From Manscaped. Inside that Performance Package 4.0, you're going to find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant. You're going to get everything that you need. Slotted at quarterback, they got the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. Spaceship's there to guide you on a jersey to trim your body, even below the waist. And that includes your A-gap, because we're going to talk a lot of offensive line play here, A-gaps and B-gaps. That Lawnmower is going to be able to help you out. Fourth generation trimmer also features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to that advanced skin-safe technology. Listen, we've all tried to clean it up down there a little bit before, and it hadn't gone well. Probably trying to use something that you shouldn't have. That's why Manscaped is here. These are designed to help you do some of those uncomfortable things to make sure your appearance is what it needs to be when that time comes. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker, the Ultimate Flex. Watch it run through ear and nose hairs like Aaron Donald would run through an offensive line. There's nothing worse than when you see the ear hair sticking out, or you can even see the nose hair yourself. How some of you guys don't even notice that and pay attention to that is beyond me. I have no idea. And don't forget the Crop Preserver ball deodorant for their crop receiver to help your little bench warmers be on their A game when the sun is out. I know for me, earlier in the season, you got to have it. Like, I'm going to be out there doing a game in Tuscaloosa week 1. It's going to be like 114 on the field. You have to have it. If you're going to that game and sitting in the stands, good Lord, you got to have it. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code CUBE, C-U-B-E, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code CUBE at manscaped.com. It's time to put the PP back in PPR and get a grip on your pigskin this season with our friends from Manscaped. Appreciate them being a sponsor of the show as well. All right, so here is my preseason top 10. I'm going to start with one because I think it's pretty easy. That's Georgia. Gave you all the reasons earlier when we talked about them in camp. Yes, quarterback is a question mark for me, but they have time to work that out. And I think with all the weapons around them, I think I could win 8 games at quarterback for Georgia this year. This is just me personally. And the defense, even though it's not going to be the defense of the last 2 years, there are not a lot of other defenses at college football that I look at and say, oh, yeah, they'll definitely be better than Georgia's group. So Georgia, number 1, they've won 2 titles in a row. Michigan comes in at number 2. Offensive line, stout. Great job in the portal, filling their holes. Defensive line, stout. Running backs, amazing. Quarterback, tested. Tight end losses, a little bit of a concern. But I think that's something that they should be able to overcome. And I think they continue to get a little bit more athletic, which I like about this Michigan team and the coaching staff continuity that's there, including the strength coach. A couple of things that I like about Michigan being at 2. I'm going to go Alabama 3. And I know what you're all saying, the quarterback thing. Wow. Well, guess what? Georgia's got a quarterback thing in there at 1. But what I know about Alabama is the offensive line is going to rip. J.C. Latham, Tyler Booker are going to absolutely get it. I think Caden Proctor is a guy that we're talking about in that group at some point this year. Seth McLaughlin's tested at center. You have a backup center in Darren Dalcourt that might play some guard. Terrence Ferguson's coming on. They're going to roll people. They're deep at tight end. They're deep at running back. So if they want to go two back under Tommy Rees, they can do that. 12-13 personnel, they can do that. It doesn't have to be Devonta Smith, Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa for Alabama to win games. Jaheim Otis is a man-child on that defensive line. Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell are going to be able to wreck it off the edge. Deontay Lawson's the next great Alabama linebacker waiting to happen, and they got the secondary loaded with talent, with guys that can play nickel, corner, safety, free, strong. Jalen Key comes in from UAB. He's going to help as well. He's having a great fall camp. So there are just, other than quarterback, very little concerns for me with Alabama, and getting back to playing the kind of football that they want to play this year. I'm pretty confident in what they're going to be. I'll go LSU at 4. Jaden Daniels back. The entire offensive line back. Took them a long time to figure that out. Loaded at receiver. They got robots at wide receiver. The running back's not dynamic, but they're good at tight end. They're great inside on defense, and they have maybe the best player in college football in Harold Perkins. I'm also hearing the transfer corners have been really good in fall camp, so that one big concern we had over there might not be as big a concern once we get into the season, and we're going to find out pretty early against Florida State. I will go Ohio State at 5, and this is probably even a stretch from where I wanted to put them, but the more I thought about it, I thought, all right, JT's a takeover guy at defensive end. You got a defensive end opposite from him that's going to flash and potentially can take over some games. I don't love the linebackers. I think the secondary is okay. The offensive line, I don't understand why people just think it's going to be better than it was a year ago. I personally just don't see that. But no matter who the quarterback is, he's going to be throwing to one of the better wide receiver cores we've ever seen in the history of college football, more than likely. And they got a tight end that I absolutely love. So, Cade Stover, if you like watching tight ends wear people out, he's your guy. So there's a lot of good with Ohio State. They're well coached. They got a great staff. And yes, they have some concerns, but I also think on the schedule, they got time to figure it out. I'll go Florida State at 6. Depth, a little bit of concern. Times when things kind of went in the tank a little bit, some very costly turnover, situational football. All that growing up has to happen for them to be a top 5 football team. But Jordan Travis is a dude at quarterback. They got freak show wide receivers, brought another one in from the portal. I love what they did on the defensive line to add around Jared Verse to be able to attack the quarterback, which, by the way, they got both ends covered. They got the inside covered. Florida State's going to be really good, man. Penn State comes in at 7, super talented, maybe the best tackle in college football, one of the best tandems at running back in college football. We just don't know a lot about quarterback. I don't think it's going to live up to people's expectations, but it could still be pretty good. And I think they're pretty athletic defensively. Yeah, you got a big loss in the secondary, but I think they're going to be enough up front to be consistently problematic. Texas comes in at 8. I told you guys about these weapons. They can just flat out go. If Quinn Ewers takes a step, which all signs are pointing that he will, and gains that confidence, just watch out for these Texas Longhorns. The O-line is going to be good. They will be able to run the football, and the defensive line will be more stout with a really good linebacker behind them. And they got a freshman linebacker coming in that's going to push for time as well. And if Catalon is healthy, he is a massive cleanup artist on the back end. Washington at 9. You heard me discuss kind of what they are, both sides of the ball, at the line of scrimmage. I also love the juice they have at receiver. I love their scheme offensively. I love adding Dylan Johnson. I love the pass rush capabilities. And USC comes in at 10 because the offense is going to be special, because they have Caleb Williams. And even if they can't get stops, which they've addressed it to an extent, I still question the mentality and the makeup, the DNA, the overall personality of the team. He's going to win them games. The kid's that friggin' good. There were 4 or 5 other teams I could have gone with at 10, but USC just has that guy. So I put them at 10. My playoff teams, Georgia, Washington, Michigan, Texas. Those are the 4 teams that I think get in this year. I think it's going to be close with Alabama again. I think the LSU-Texas thing potentially cancels them out. Because if they beat Texas, lose to LSU, don't go to the championship game, but Texas goes to the championship game and wins it, I would assume Texas probably gets in. That's kind of how I calculated that thing out. I do think Washington probably has to run the table, honestly, to get in, but I think they're capable of doing that. Even with a quarterback that has proven that he can get cold at times, I still think they're capable of running the table And I think some folks are kind of sleeping on Washington a little bit. Boise State, Tulsa, at Michigan State out of the gate, then Cal, at Arizona, big one against Oregon at home, Arizona State, at Stanford, then you're at USC. Utah's at home at Oregon State. That's the stretch right there that they have to find a way to get it done. And then potentially, could there be a loss in there to an Oregon or a USC or a Utah, and then they find their way in the conference title game, win it, and get in? Probably. It's a tough one to pick this year because these conference championship games, I think, are going to mean more collectively than they have in a very long time. Because Florida State and Clemson could both be playing for a trip to get in. I mean, hell, Texas and K-State might both be knocking on the door. Or if it's a Texas Tech, they could be knocking on the door. You name it, USC, Utah, Oregon, Washington could all be playing for a spot to get in. Clemson and Florida State could both be playing for a spot. If it's Georgia LSU or Georgia Alabama, we know that playoffs probably going to be on the line. So what happens if Ohio State's only losses to Michigan? How do we look at that football team? It's tough to pick, but for some reason, I think because some of these conferences are essentially going away and these divisions are going away, I think conference champion is going to mean a little bit more to that committee's brain this year. So Georgia, Washington, Michigan, Texas are the teams that I'm taking to get into this year's playoff, and I think Georgia wins it again. Georgia is my national championship winner again. I think they win their third in a row. So there you go. All right. Appreciate all of our new sponsors. Appreciate the guys at Podcast Heat. Please subscribe to the YouTube. We're almost at 5,000. Would love to get there before the season begins at Cube Show 61. Twitter, Instagram, at Cube Show. Follow along as always. Next Sunday, actual freaking football to talk about. I cannot wait. It is game week. Let's go.